The Immortal John Hancock here, and today I'm going to be talking about 10 Atari 2600 games that you may want to pick up for your new 2600 Plus, or if you plan on getting one, or maybe you just have an original OG 2600 and you want to play on that. I'm going to pick 10 games that aren't going to break the bank, and I have some rules and parameters that I'm going to follow. I chose mostly games that were fairly affordable. Now, some of these games have gone up in price because people are going back and checking these out, or finding these at local stores, or going on eBay, or maybe you have some of these in your attic. And so I picked 10 games out of my 2600 collection that I think everybody needs to try. And, you can play these on emulation, but really, the 2600 Plus just came out. I know a lot of people are going to be looking for carts because this new product takes original 2600 cartridges. Maybe you're an OG gamer and maybe you forgot about some of these, but anyways, I'm going to jump in. I want to thank everybody for checking this video out, as I'm really excited about talking about some of these classics. So first and foremost, I pick Ms. Pac-Man. That's right. Ms. Pac-Man was so much better than the original release of Pac-Man. Now, you may love the original release of Pac-Man, but I think Ms. Pac-Man was much better, and I think it is a great fit on the 2600. All these games have a single button control and play fantastic on the 2600, and Ms. Pac-Man is a fairly common game. You should be able to find it. Now, the carts that I show, you may find a little bit different version. This is kind of a late release, and so your cartridge may look a little bit different than this, and that's okay. It may have a different date on this. It's a late release, 1987, holy cow. But you are going to enjoy these games, and in the comments below, let me know what games you recommend after watching this video. Next up is Centipede. Now, Centipede is another iconic arcade classic, but you know what? On the 2600, it's been simplified, but it's still fun. It still has that intense gameplay, and you can control it with a joystick. And so all these games that I show here, you can control with the original Atari 2600 joystick, and the one that comes with the 2600 Plus, and fairly common to find this one. Now, some people prefer Millipede. I've talked about enjoying Millipede. It's a little bit harder to find. Centipede is a little bit more common to find. You should find all these games at a relatively affordable price. That price may vary, but you may find these at several different places, including local game stores. Check them out. Independent game stores still carry Atari 2600 games, and they may love to sell you these for the holidays. Next up is Dig Dug. Yeah, that's right, Dig Dug. I love Dig Dug on the 2600. I think it's a fantastic port and a really cool game where you're essentially going around, you're trying to blow up enemies with like an air gun, or I don't know, whatever that is. And you know what? I've always enjoyed and appreciated this fantastic port. Now, a lot of these games are what I call the Silver Label series. I think it was one of the better lineups for the Atari 2600. And what the Silver Label means is that the label is silver, okay, and typically had a red underlabel. Some of these games that I show are not part of that, but many are. And so I really think it was the best releases for the 2600. And Dig Dug is no different. Fantastic arcade port. I really enjoy playing this to this day. In fact, I probably like it more now, more than ever. Next up is Jungle Hunt. And, Jungle Hunt is kind of an overlooked arcade game. For people that grew up with it, it has, I think, 4 different stages. You have the first stage, you're like swinging on vines. And then the stage after that, you're avoiding creatures in the water. And that's a pretty challenging stage. You have like an air level. Anyways, and then after that, you're avoiding boulders, and it has like parallax scrolling. I thought this was a graphic feat for the 2600. I think it gets overlooked by other iconic arcade games, but it's fairly cheap. Another Silver Label series. And, for people wondering, are you going to talk about Pitfall? Pitfall, yes, is probably the #1 game for the 2600 Plus. As Pitfall 2 is incompatible at this time, but Pitfall, the original Pitfall, is a little bit more expensive, and so I was trying to go with like super cheap games. Even though the original Pitfall may be fairly affordable, I bet Jungle Hunt can be found cheaper. Anyways, but you know, you choose what you want to play, and these are the games that I recommend that are affordable and still cheap to find. Next, I have a pair of third-party games, and for some common 2600 games, you're going to find these in a lot, and for many of these games I recommend, you're going to find these you know, everywhere. And first and foremost, I'm going to recommend is Cubert. Now, Cubert graphically is a step down from the arcade releases. As many of these that I recommend, this gameplay is absolutely brilliant though. So fast. The more I play the original 2600 Cubert, the more I enjoy it. And you know what? It just, of all the releases, this has one of the fastest gameplay. And the 2600 really was a shining star when it came to gameplay. And when it comes to Cubert, I just find myself going back to it because the speed of the gameplay is faster than any other release. And so yes, check this out. It should be fairly common, and hopefully you can find it in your area. And that was published by Parker Brothers, and the other release that was very common and well done was Frogger. Now, there's another Frogger release on the 2600. It's not compatible with the 2600 Plus. It's a StarPath Supercharger game, the official Frogger, and it does have better graphics. But you know what? The original Frogger release, brilliant to play. Now, Frogger was released on everything, including the 2600. And you know what? This is found, you know, going around and finding lots of video games for the Atari 2600 for third-party releases. Third-party means that Atari didn't publish it. It was released by Parker Brothers. This is a brilliant game and highly recommended if you haven't checked it out. And one I like to come back to. These single-screen arcade games are a perfect fit on the 2600. And, you know, I don't know many other consoles that came out at the time that had so many arcade releases. You know, that's why the 2600 at the time was king, as, you know, it had just all the iconic arcade releases at home. And that was a big deal then. You know, going to the arcade was expensive. And, you know, playing, you know, a cartridge, a port of an arcade game at home was so awesome. And, you know, I have so many positive memories of playing my 2600. Anyways, next up is Asteroids. Now, growing up, I wasn't the biggest Asteroids fan. I was kind of more of a Defender person. And you may swap Defender out for Asteroids. I don't think the original Defender release is great. I actually think Asteroids is a better release, but that's just my opinion. But Asteroids, you know, the iconic arcade game with the vector graphics was converted to graphics for the 2600. And you know what? It doesn't look the same as the arcade, but it still has that iconic fun. It's fast, it's challenging. I never was great at this game, but you know what? You know, Asteroids really put 2600 on the map with some other arcade releases. Very, very common game. This is not part of the silver release. This is part of the picture release. You know, and there's different versions of Asteroids. You might find this version in like a text-only version. I do believe Sears released a version of it as well. And so your cart may look different than this, but this is one of the more common releases of it. There is a silver label version of Asteroids. Very, very uncommon to find. Still don't even have it in my collection. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on. Next up, got to have a racing game, and there was a couple things that I could have chosen. You know, Enduro comes to mind for Activision, but that's actually kind of an uncommon game. But Pole Position is a common Atari 2600 release, another silver label release. And you know what? This is from the iconic arcade game. I grew up with this, played this at Eagle's Nest Pizza back in the day, and grew up with this. And you know, this is a fantastic racing game. And it has a faithful port on the 2600. And yes, there is a 7800 version that you can, I do believe, play on the 2600 Plus. But I'm going to go with the 2600 version, as the reason why I'm not recommending 7800 games on this list is that 7800 games are a lot less common. You may find them, but you're going to pay more. And, you know, you're going to find these 30-to-1 to 7800 games. So Pole Position. Definitely go and check out Pole Position as, you know what, one of the better racing games on the 2600. All right, the last two are games that I have very, very fond memories of. This first one, it actually was recommended to me in the early 2000s by a good friend, Rick. And you know what? This is a game that, you know, I didn't grow up with the 2600 playing this game, but when I started retro collecting in the 90s, you know, I was picking out games that I didn't know about. This is a game that I didn't really know about until I met other collectors. And Phoenix is Atari 2600 release. Again, this is another silver label release. Your cart may look a little bit different than mine. This is another late release, 87. There's some more common releases that look differently than this, but Phoenix is an amazing single screen game. And there's another recommendation I'm going to talk about after this. So you have a shield, you have different waves of enemies, the graphics are fantastic for a 2600 release, and then there's a boss fight. And so a lot of people are going to recommend Phoenix. The other game that's fairly common, it is a third-party release, is Demon Attack. And I go back and forth. Sometimes I like Demon Attack more, sometimes I like Phoenix more. In the comments below, let me know which one you prefer. But I do think Phoenix is one of the better games on the 2600 release. And I think it shows what the 2600 was capable of back in the day. And so you got to go with Phoenix. And last and definitely not least, no, I didn't forget about it, Space Invaders. Now, Space Invaders is really the first big hit game to come to the 2600, and the 2600 version, lots of different variations too. One thing I want to recommend about these games is there's a lot of different in the settings or game selection, several different versions of these games to play, and Space Invaders no different. I don't know how many different versions it has, but you're going to pick something, a version that you enjoy. But really, I think if you're going to get one game out of this lot here, and a game that doesn't come with a 10-in-1 cart on the 2600 Plus, get Space Invaders. And that's it. That's my selection of 2600 games. In the comments below, do you agree with these? What else would you recommend? Thank you so much. I've had so much fun talking about Atari on my channel, and I really enjoy the 2600 Plus. Hopefully soon there'll be an update which it'll make it even more compatible, even though it's 99% compatible with all the game releases out there. There is room for improvement, and Atari is working on that. So thank you so much for coming to my channel. If you like what you see, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and clicking the bell, as I'm uploading videos every week. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. Let's keep it positive. This is the Immortal John Hancock, and you take care.